Should have, could have, and would have. West Ham should have won that game against Burnley. West Ham could have won that game against Burnley. And if we applied ourselves the way we did in that second half, we would have won that game against Burnley. That's the frustrating thing. No one can question the second half performance. The second half performance is exactly the kind of performance that West Ham fans want to see. Because that's the performance that gets us over the line. That's the performances that gets us goals. That's the performances that don't concede goals, even though we've got a bit of a dodgy defense. I just literally don't understand the mindset and the thinking into that game. That was a game of two halves. No one's taken away from Burnley's performance, particularly in the first half. But what is frustrating is when you've got a team like Burnley, who have been turned over a lot by many teams in the Premier League, they sit rock bottom of the Premier League. They play a particular style, which is they want the ball, they want to play a possessional style. We know what their tactics going to be. They know they're going to press us. They know they're going to get at us. So why do we low block them in the first half? Why do we allow them to do what they want to do? It doesn't make tactical sense. It really doesn't. And again, I'm not taking away from their performance in the first half. However, apart from those opportunities, we shouldn't have allowed them to get anywhere near us. Listen, you can't stop that first goal. You can't. You can't stop that first goal. That's a big hit and hope. It's a wonderful strike from what I believe is a wonderful player. A player that's got a very bright career in front of himself, Fofana. The second goal we conceded, another defensive error. So many errors kicking in our game. But what I don't understand is we know what we're coming up against. And still we play the low block at home, at the London Stadium, in front of our fans. That's not going to get the fans on your side. That's going to give you a form of frustration. The frustration kicks in on the field. The frustration kicks in off the field. It was an absolutely embarrassing first half. But then the second half comes out and it's a completely different performance. It's completely different. It's literally polar opposite to what we did in the first half. And it worked. There wasn't panic. It just worked. It simply worked. We had intent. We held the ball. We played a high line. We pressed. And we just changed a few little bits and bobs. But I don't understand why we don't do it from the start. It's so frustrating as a West Ham fan to watch that. And that's why I've titled the show Should Have, Would Could Have, and Would Have. Should have, could have, would have. Should have, would have, could have, whatever you want to say it, however you want to say it, West Ham should have walked away with those 3 points. West Ham would have walked away with those 3 points if we'd adapted those tactics in the second half into the first half. And that's the part I don't get. And that's where the buck stops with the manager. Unfortunately, it does. But it does. The buck stops with him because you can't have two polar opposite tactical decisions. Listen, I can understand to a certain extent consolidating. I get it. I get it to a certain extent, especially in the league. But the league is precious. You need to stay in the league. But we're in the league, okay? We're in the league. So you've got an opportunity now to try and progress this team. And progressing this team is not what you do in the first half. If we had came out in that second half like that, we would have lost this game. What's concerning is if we'd have gone in on the first half, drawing the game, would we have came out in the second half like that, potentially losing the game? Playing like that in the first half would have lost West Ham the game in full time. Something had to give and something had to change. And we've seen glimpses of that kind of energy, that kind of flamboyancy, that creativity, that togetherness, that pressing. We've got it in our tank and I don't understand it. And I'm just praying and I'm just hoping that Moyes has learned his lesson from this once and for all, has learned his lesson from the first half, has learned his lesson that we can't do that. We can't do that at home at the London Stadium against bottom of the league. Again, I'm not discrediting what Burnley have done. Fair play to them. They come to teams, they take the games to teams, but they are where they are for a reason. They are where they are for a reason. But there's too many of these results coming up. The Sheffield Uniteds, the Burnleys, the Bournemouths. We're struggling to get the results against them. And we shouldn't be. It's not about being on paper. It's just about giving something back. Fight. Fight for the ball. I literally can't understand it. I'm growing so frustrated by it. And when you see the tactics changed so dramatically halfway through, you know it's capable of doing it. So why not do it for 90 minutes? We're safe. We need momentum going into this big European tie against Freiburg on Thursday. I'm telling you now, we cannot afford to do that again. We can't afford to do it again because people are turning, people are getting pissed off with those kind of performances. Consolidation isn't really the answer anymore because we're safe. So consolidating is what? Are you trying to just finish in the top 10? I'm not bothered about finishing in the top 10. I'd rather finish in the top 6. Of course, I'd rather finish in the top 6. But I'd rather finish in the top 6 fucking really going for the opposition, really taking the game to the team, doing what we did in the second half, in the first half, doing it for 90 minutes. Because I'm telling you now, if we had did and done that, what we did in the second half, in that first half, we would not have lost that game today. We wouldn't have lost that game yesterday. If we'd have did some of that against Freiburg, in Freiburg, we would have lost that game. We wouldn't have lost the game. If we did it against Sheffield United, we wouldn't have lost the game because I've seen that opposition too many times. I've seen them against our club, as you have, and we know ourselves that's not what West Ham are capable of doing. West Ham are capable of doing more. So do it. Do it. We're frustrated. Do it. It's time. There is no ifs, buts, maybes. There's no excuses anymore. You've got the tools of your trade right in front of you, and we need to maximize them as much as we possibly can. Shout out to Danny Ings. He came on, he gave it his all. And this is the funny thing. When a West Ham play that way in the second half, that suits any particular forward player. Danny Ings got the best of that situation. Unfortunate not to get the goal chopped off from offside. Fortunate not to score that wonderful strike that hit the bar. Unfortunate not to walk away with a hat trick in the last 10 minutes. Like, what a performance from him. But the frustration is simply down to the tactical decisions made in the first game, and that is the most clearest thing to see. Listen, I don't like making these videos. I don't like the rants. I can't be bothered with the clicks. Like, it's not about that. It's about getting my opinion across. I don't like making these videos. I'd rather make the 5 things we learned about a West Ham victory than I would be over me, Anton ranting, Russ ranting, Holly ranting, Luke Cess, whoever comes on the show ranting. Nobody can be arse ranting. I don't want to do this. And it's not a respect the point situation. You can't respect that point because we know we could have done better. The difference is respecting the point is when you're not playing well and not performing well and you're getting a result just by the skin of your teeth. And I tell you what, it was technically by the skin of our teeth. So I'm not respecting the point because I know we were capable of doing that in the first half. I know we were. But we sat back and we allowed Burnley to get at us. And what we do in defence, I don't know why we do it, but we play the ball back and then we look for the long ball. And Mavropanos and Agerd, they were struggling to make connections with those long balls. They weren't working. The long ball wasn't working. The low block wasn't working. So it's not working. Change it. The team's better than that. The squad's better than that, albeit it's a thin squad. Moise, you're better than that. Anyway, take it easy.